Good morning, ECS-READS. This morning we're going to read Paul Revere, Hero on Horseback. It's kind of appropriate. Today is September 11th, 2019. It is Patriot Day, and so we're going to read about a patriot named Paul Revere. Trouble was in the air in Boston in the spring of 1775. Bad feelings between the British and the colonists had been building for years. One problem was taxes. The British had won the French and Indian War in 1763, but the war had cost a lot of money. The British thought the colonists should pay for it, so the British started taxing the colonists. First, they passed the Stamp Act in 1765. Then they passed the Townshend Acts. These laws made the colonists pay for things that they'd never paid for before, such as tea and paper. The colonists thought these laws were unfair. Many were angry about it, and these are some of the stamps the colonists had to pay for and put stamps like these on their newspapers and important papers. There they are. Okay. Some people wanted to take action to stop the new laws. They were the patriots. But it was not safe to be a patriot. A patriot at the time was someone who was working against the government. Then, as now, that was a serious crime. Then, as now, the government called that treason. Paul Revere was one of these patriots. By day, he was a silversmith in his shop. He did the tedious work of making silver tea sets and other things by hand. Let's go back. Tedious is highlighted. That is something that you have to take a lot of time to work on, and it is very fine, detailed work. Go back. However, his secret job was revolution. With others, he made plans against the British. And that's a picture of Paul Revere and one of the tea sets he made at his workshop. The Boston Massacre. One day in 1770, an angry mob gathered in Boston. They began mocking the British soldier who was standing guard. Mocking is making fun of. They threw stones and snowballs. They terrified the guard. The frightened guard called more soldiers. They opened fire on the crowd. That day, 3 colonists died and several more were wounded. The colonists called the event the Boston Massacre. And that's kind of a picture or painting of it. It says, by 1770, many British soldiers believed that they lived in an enemy land. And here's a famous picture of the Boston Massacre. Many colonists hung this picture in their homes to remind them of the Boston Massacre. Paul Revere helped make a picture to show what happened. That's the picture. He was not trying to mimic or reproduce the event exactly as it happened. Instead, the picture was more like a lie. In Revere's picture, the British soldiers looked evil. They're all lined up in a row as if they planned to kill the people. On the other hand, the crowd looks innocent. No one is throwing things. No one looks angry. The picture was sent all over the colonies. It helped stir up hate for the British. The Tea Act. Then in 1773, Britain passed the Tea Act. Its goal was to cut the colonists out of the tea trade. The Tea Act was, some people would lose a lot of money. The Tea Act was a summons or a call to action. A group of men held the Boston Tea Party. No one drank any tea at this party. Instead, they threw tons of British tea into the Boston harbor. What did the British do? And here's a picture showing what might have happened at the Boston Tea Party. And it says that because they were breaking the law, the Patriots disguised themselves as American Indians. The British were very angry when they found out about the dumping of the tea. Their answer was to close Boston Harbor. No ships could go in or out. They also put an end to most town meetings. For some, this seemed like the end of liberty. People could not meet to discuss local issues. What had become of their rights? The British sent a stronger army to the colonies too. They made the colonists take soldiers to live in their homes. People were being watched. They had to speak their true feelings in whispers or in private. Rights and freedom were gone. The people paid taxes, but they lacked the rights of British citizens. Lack means they did not have the same, basically they did not have the same rights as a British citizen. Anger was building, and this is kind of a timeline on the side. The French and Indian War, 1763, the Stamp Act, the Townshend Acts, the Boston Massacre, and the Tea Act, Boston Tea Party, and Paul Revere's Ride, which is coming up. Fighting back. Anger was perhaps greatest among the Sons of Liberty. There were Sons of Liberty all over the colonies. They were patriots who loved freedom. They loved freedom and were willing to fight for it. The Sons of Liberty were angry at Great Britain for taking away their rights. They began writing to each other and working as a group. They formed an efficient network that planned ways to take a stand. Efficient network is where they kind of laid out plans and they were able to talk to each other and they knew what each other was doing and could communicate long distances with each other. They planned to take a stand against the British. Paul Revere was one of the Sons of Liberty. He had helped to organize the Boston Tea Party. He brought people together and they planned it through that efficient network. However, his greatest fame doesn't come from his role at the Boston Tea Party. It doesn't come from his picture of the Boston Massacre either. Instead, it comes from his work as a messenger. He often rode on horseback to bring news to and from the Patriots. He helped to set up secret meetings. He carried warnings to patriots in danger. Up here, Paul Revere's famous ride. The most famous ride Paul Revere ever took was in April 1775. By then, many colonists hated the British. They were getting ready to fight. The British were angry with the colonists too. They saw trouble coming. The British got ready to stop the colonists. In April 1775, some colonists heard secret news. The British were planning to march to nearby town of Concord. It was 20 miles from Boston. On the way, the British planned to arrest Patriot leaders. And here's a picture. The Patriots are prepared to fight for their liberty. The British could travel to Concord by land or by sea. The Patriots needed to know which way they were coming. So Paul Revere arranged for a signal that would appear in the tower of a church in Boston. The signal was 1 or 2 lanterns. 1 lantern meant by land, 2 meant by sea. The Patriots were watching from across the river. But Revere did more than arrange for the signal. He personally crossed the river to Charleston. He crossed the river himself to go deliver the message, did not rely on the light in the tower. He did it in darkness so that no one would see him. During the night, 2 men took him across in a rowboat. A British warship was docked in the Charles River. British soldiers could have killed the men. Luckily, no one saw them. Still, the men rowed as quietly as they could. They even covered the ends of the oars to keep them from making sound. Here's a map of Boston, and it kind of shows his route out to Concord and through Lexington. If the signal was by sea, the British were coming across the Charles River by boat. After crossing, Revere crawled onto the shore. Some patriots are waiting for him there. He had seen the signal. They had a horse ready for Revere. Now he could ride down the rural roads to warn others who had not seen the signal. He set off quickly for Lexington. Rural's kind of like out in the country. Along the way, that moonlit night, he passed the homes of colonists. At each place, he called out a warning. He yelled, "The regulars are coming." People knew that meant the British were coming. Patriots went into action. People grabbed their guns. All over the countryside, colonists got ready to fight. Soon, the peal of church bells rang out. The bells called more people to action. Peal is the sounds of church bells, and there's Revere rode through the night. The British had run for their lives. Many never made it back to Boston. Revere rode fast and hard. At one point, the British soldiers saw him and chased him, but lost him. He made it to Lexington. His most important job was to warn two leaders there, John Hancock and Sam Adams. The British wanted to capture them. That would surely mean they would be shipped to England to be hang. Be shipped to England to hang. Revere got there in time, and the men escaped. Revere set off to Concord. On his way, he met British soldiers. They had held him for a while and took his horse, but his work was done because they had been warned the Patriots were ready for the British. The end. And that was a book about Paul Revere. By the way, you can find these books on the free bookshelves that you can borrow, take, bring them back, and the cafeteria. There's 2 bookshelves in there for these books on the shelf.